Welcome to another weekly edition of the Best Way to Smoke News with Serpo Jr.
Big J.
Yes. And cannabis tech firm Weed Maps is cutting up to 25% of its employees as the industries continue to turn downwards. I remember I used to use Weed Maps like all the time. Cannabis tech firm Weed Maps is cutting up to 25% of its employees, according to a filing. The cuts come less than a month after former CEO Chris Bales stepped down. Weed Maps cut 10% of employees in August. Weed Maps is cutting up to 175 employees, or 25% of its workforce, amid a tough stretch for the cannabis review site. The company told Insider that the majority of the cuts were made last week. Weed Maps previously laid off 10% of its staff in August, as Insider reported. Weed Maps CEO Bales stepped down on November 7th, and Doug Francis, a Weed Map co-founder, is running the company as an intern basis. So it's like once everything actually really started booming, once like the shops and all that stuff was up, Weed Maps was really, you know what I'm saying, like look it up. These got the best shops right here. These deals is over here. So, as shops became more readily available, other little forms of socializing, it's like Weed Maps is going down. So it's like, man, we can't be putting no food on y'all plate till we ain't even getting that.
And I remember excuse me, and I remember even before they really started regulating and shit, they had every kind of dispensary on there, even the ones that wasn't legal. They had everything on that motherfucker though. So, with it leaning more towards legalizing a lot of things with cannabis and shit though. So it's changing a lot of dynamics with the prices, man. Moving on. Companies behind death by gummy bears. Marijuana edibles accused of selling products 50 times more powerful than allowed. 50 times. That's major. The Minnesota Pharmaceutical Board filed a civil lawsuit this week alleging that a cannabis retailer sold edible products containing more than 50 times the state's legal limit for THC. The retailer, a business conglomerate called Northland Vaper, was specifically accused of violating Minnesota's edible cannabinoid laws with marijuana items marketed under its Death by Gummy Bears and Wonka Weeds product lines. An ongoing investigation by the Minnesota Board of Pharmacy and U.S. Food and Drug Administration is examining complaints about the company's Death by Gummy Bears edibles, including a report that suggests at least one person died after consuming the product. According to the Pharmaceutical Board, the FDA has not determined whether advisors' reaction reported by consumers were caused by the Death by Gummies edibles. They always trying to like put it on it though, you know what I mean? But notes on its website that products containing Delta 8 THC like these gummies have not been evaluated or approved by the FDA for safe use in any context. And that's 50 times more powerful than like your average. But I'm wondering what they basing that on, like what level of THC that they basing it on. Because it could be a low level, you know what I mean?
But they thinking it's high. But I mean, they say it suggests one person died from it. So that's neither here nor there. But man, whoever reporting up on this shit, they not a weed smoker or even an edible eater.
Man.
You know what I'm saying? Because if I can get something like 50 times stronger than what it is before I go to sleep,
man.
Death by Gummy Bears it is.
Man, no.
Congressional lawmakers declined to put marijuana reform in defense bill as new details surface on Safe Plus package. A large-scale defense bill that advocates had hoped would serve as a vehicle to enact marijuana banking and expungement reform does not include any cannabis language following bipartisan and bicameral negotiations. At the same time, details about the so-called Safe Plus package that lawmakers have been negotiating are emerging, including the potential inclusion of language on gun rights for marijuana consumers. The deal could still advance as part of separate omnibus appropriation legislation, or even as a standalone before the end of the year. So what this is right here, if this, you know what I'm saying, really goes up there, it's a lot of people that may have this marijuana convictions or whatever it may be, and it may be stopping them. Say if they want to be a law enforcement officer, they can't get out there and use a firearm because of this marijuana thing. So it's like, instead of just banking and expungement and stuff like that, there's other things that they putting into this as far as gun rights for marijuana consumers and things of such. So to me, that's a big old thumbs up.
Because in some states, you know, they try to take away your gun rights if you have like marijuana licenses and shit like that.
Yep.
Moving on. How profitable is a cannabis business in the next decade? Cannabis is one of the fastest growing industries in the U.S. Following marijuana legalization in many states, it has opened more opportunities for entrepreneurs who want to offer unique products to a special group of consumers. Additionally, the growth of cannabis products pardons continuously exceed expectations. Due to the high profitability in the current market, many aspiring business owners are eyeing the cannabis industry. Although a promising venture considering its current status, cannabis can still be as risky as every other business. Hence, you need all the data available to predict its success in the next decade. For instance, dispensary operating costs. One of the factors to consider when diving into the cannabis industry is the operating costs. It includes setting up a facility to grow and process them into various products. The capital you'll need to launch a cannabis dispensary may range from $150,000 to $2 million. That's a lot of money, like for the average person to want, want to jump into the industry, depending on its scale, location, product offered, and legal licensing fees. So this is just a small bit of information about some of the things you have to go through to start a business. You know what I mean? To even at this state, to even just jump into this industry, man, it's a lot of money, and you got to have capital. You got to have capital. Damn, capital.
There it is.
Damn.
That's the
you got to have capital. Moving on.
California company hit with a $128 million fine over pot gummies. On Monday, a Los Angeles judge ruled that the makers of a popular Cushy Punch gummies were guilty of illegally producing cannabis products at an unlicensed Los Angeles facility. The illicit goods were worth millions of dollars, according to state investigators. The judge ordered the company and its executives to pay a $128 million penalty to the state. So that's California. The fine may be the largest cannabis penalty in the state's history.
Ain't no May to it.
Man, 128, yeah. A spokesperson for the Department of Cannabis Control said the agency is unaware of any fine larger than Monday's ruling. Jennifer Fisher, a San Francisco attorney who specializes in cannabis, said the $128 million is probably the biggest fine in cannabis history within the state of California. And the fine stems from a 2019 investigation in which the state found that Vertical Bliss, the company formerly behind the Cushy Punch brand, had illegally produced 3.3 million gummies of cannabis worth and combined of $64 million. So it's like they've been on this since 2019. And I'm guessing they trying to this was a legal product at the time, such and such. We finna find you from right here. We see you making up all of this money, whatever it may be. It's not saying that it's too potent, is less potent. It's just seeming as if it's going like 2019. I think it was kind of on the ropes because what? You know what I'm saying? It's like it was halfway accepted, but it's now and it's all right, it's legal for recreational use. They trying to go back before time, and trying to tax them, in my opinion.
Yes.
128 million worth. But that's the news. Best way to smoke with Serpo Jr.
Big J.